بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله ولي الصالحين وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. This is your brother Gabriel Romaani. Again, we're taking your questions for mytaskia.com. We're fighting pornography, addiction, both brothers and sisters. Please check out the descriptions, the links. Support this project. Question today from a mother. My daughter's 14. I put her in an only girls school because I thought it would protect her from boys. Recently we spoke and she opened up to me and said she's attracted to girls. I was so emotional that I didn't know what to say. She's my daughter and I love her. How do I help her change the way she feels? Again, people sometimes say, Brother Gabriel, exaggerate talking about this lesbian stuff, this bisexual stuff. You need to stop. Here you go. I mean, I cannot tell you how many of such questions I get, especially with women, girls. Why? We've discussed this in a previous episode where I told you why it is easier for a woman to fall into SSA, what's called same-sex attraction or lesbianism. Parents will say, well, I'm going to send her to an all-girls school to protect her from boys. As she said, well, yeah, okay, you protected her from boys, but that's not necessarily what we need to protect our daughters from or our boys from girls. We need to help them understand the dynamics of the halal and haram in the relationship, the natural relationship that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created for men and women, which is through zawaj, through marriage. But because of the delay in marriage, because of the scary nature of marriage today, gamophobia, people are afraid, terrified of marriage, because of social media that looks down upon marriage and discourages women and men from marrying, because of zina being romanticized and increased in these platforms, you find that more and more people are being confused not only with the relationship between men and women, but their sexuality. It happens in many Muslim countries as well, non-Muslim countries. All boys school, again, same reason, to keep them away from the fitna of women. It's not like they're not going to see women on the street. I'm not going to talk about segregation in schools right now, but what I will say is, whenever you try to build a physical block without a spiritual block, without tarbiyah, to explain to children, to teach them as to why, how do you protect yourself from your shahawat. It's not about protecting a girl from boys or protecting a boy from girls. It's about how do your shahawat, your desires come into play. How does it work in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? You think that if you protect a woman from boys, she will not express her desires in other ways? Like, what do you think happens in jails? Right? Women will turn to lesbianism in jails, men will turn to homosexuality because they don't have a higher being that they are afraid of. They don't have a concept of, no matter where I am, be it a safe environment, a non-safe environment, Allah is watching me. So it's not an issue of protecting boys and girls from each other. It's an issue of how does one protect oneself from their desires, from their shahawat. And an-nafs, inna nafs al-amaratu bis-su'. Indeed, this nafs is guiding, is indulging us and encouraging us towards evil. And that evil will be in different ways. Shahawat will be taken out. A person, subhanAllah, not to mention all the propaganda, culturally, people, how much they accept now this same-sex attraction. They push it. They want people to be like that. It's cool. How many brothers and sisters, Muslims, who use the rainbow and pronouns in their profiles and consider themselves to be bisexual because it's cool, or lesbians or gays because it's cool now. And yes, it does. This kind of phenomenon has been reported many times. It's not even, a few times, tens of times. No, hundreds if not thousands of times in the last few years. Again, why? Because it's been accepted, pushed, propagated in the Muslim community, in the non-Muslim community, of course. It's bled into the Muslim countries. And people have tried to protect their children from the opposite gender, but they forgot of the fitna of the same gender. And having worked in schools, pretty much in different Muslim countries, having been a consultant with different schools, I've heard about these issues in Mecca, in Medina. Forget about in California or Georgia or something like that, or Pakistan. We're talking here about Haramain. In schools that are all boys or all girls. But specifically what I said, with girls, they're more susceptible to this because girls by nature are more emotional. They're more touchy-feely. They do hold hands more, hug more. Guys don't really do that, even though you see it sometimes in Arab countries specifically, or, Desi communities, that sometimes the guys do go a bit too on that side. But in general, men don't do that. Women do that. They turn to each other emotionally for support. They hug each other. They cry on each other's shoulders. They're very touchy-feely. And in the Sharia, that's actually not supposed to be like that. In the Sharia, even women have their awra. It's not encouraged to always hug each other and kiss each other and so on. Women today, they compliment each other. They evaluate each other. They compare each other everywhere. They hypersexualize each other. They really objectify each other. And that is again to do with their mobile phones, their Instagram and TikTok influencers, models that they see being constantly pushed over every single day. That changes their brain. And when their brain changes, one of the things that can change is their attraction, the natural inclination towards the opposite gender. It changes towards the same gender. Because now everything is aesthetically pleasing from a woman. Beautiful, 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 beautiful. And then the girls end up falling into this. Again, it can happen with just a very innocent hug or something like that. But maybe one of them has been exposed to certain things, maybe abuse in the past. A lot of SSA or same-sex sex attraction cases have a beginning in trauma or in abuse when they're young. So these girls come to an all-girls school. It can take one girl to totally destroy a whole class. And I've seen it. Wallahi, I've seen it. And it just explodes. And again, with girls it's different because there's no penetration, there's no pregnancy or the fear of pregnancy. So it's more about just intimacy and just enjoyment. So a lot of girls fall into this. In girls' school, this is issue. Now, what do you do? Can you actually stop this? Parents need to talk to children about the dangers of this when they go to all girls or all boys school. Knowing that these things happen can help parents talk to their children about this. One of the ways that a huge pandemic, I would say, that happened in one of the schools I was working with, and it was again with lesbianism, was that finally one girl who was educated properly by her parents in the deen exposed this system, this cartel of mafia, of lesbianism that was taking place in that school. And that's how we were able to catch it. And at the time, I was the general director of the school, and I had to take very serious, drastic measures. But this was the reality. And it was a huge problem. And this happens in other schools and in other schools. And I've heard and seen and experienced this more, trust me, mark my words, more than men doing it. All right? Because again, it is so much, it's not so noticeable when it comes to girls. Recently, we've seen there was a case of these two girls from Kerala who were supposedly schoolgirls in Saudi Arabia. Their parents were working there and they became lesbians in Saudi Arabia in this all-girls school. And then the parents thought that it's a good idea to take them back to India, and they took their case to the court and they won, and now they're together. What a embarrassment. But again, parents didn't understand, they didn't know. A lot of parents, like this sister, innocently trying to protect their daughters from boys. I've said it many times, naturally men and women gravitate towards each other. That gravitation is not haram. The actions are haram. Parents need to facilitate marriage. Parents need to talk to their children about marriage, to be excited. And if their children are ready, and if things don't have to reach 25, 30. But if we keep pushing it down, that boys are bad, be aware, be careful, and women are bad, and don't allow them to feel the natural, it's going to be there. They're going to see it on the street. I'm not saying let's go to mixed schools and just let them do whatever they want to. That's not what I'm saying. But tarbiyah, if you build a wall, a physical wall, you need to also give the tarbiyah as to why and what's haram and what's not. Are the feelings haram? The actions? We need to explain. We don't educate our children. We have no education when it comes to these things. All we tell them is haram, stay away from boys, they're bad. They go to girls, they don't know how to express themselves. One of these girls can be corrupt for whatever reason, from social media, from pornography, for whatever. And push comes to shove, and one makes a move on the other one likes it, and boom, then it spreads like wildfire. I've seen it spread like wildfire. What can you do as a mother or a father right now to deal with this? It's very difficult. You can talk to her. It's good that she opened up to you, because a lot of girls do not open up. Again, sometimes it's shameful. And sometimes they open up too much because they don't care anymore. It's reached to that point where there is no more shame. So I'm not sure what's the case in this question. However, as a parent, if she's come to you, talk to her. Tell her about the reasons why this is impermissible. Tell her about that, being with a woman is not like being with a real man. That she's going to have a husband, children. Try to explain to her as to where this is coming from. Talk about the propaganda. Talk about the LGBTQ. Right now it's so-called Pride Month in June, right? Astaghfirullah, may Allah, protect our children. So talk to them about this. But again, I go back to the same issue. If we don't educate, preemptive measures, damage control is almost impossible, especially when it comes to sexual issues, trauma, rape, sexual experiences, lesbianism, homosexuality. These are so deeply rooted in primal instincts, in our fitra, that if they are corrupt, it's very difficult to change back. That's why the Sharia is so strict. People don't understand why the Sharia is so strict when it comes to these things. People dismiss the Sharia for being backwards when they realize later on that, now I understand why it's such an important thing. Why it's such an important thing to be strict on these things, to protect children in the developmental stages where their identity is formed, their sexuality is formed, when they're very, very fluid in these things, to protect them so they can naturally progress to love a real man and a man to love a real woman and to have a family. But of course, all these attacks from so many different inputs are being targeted, aimed at our children, and parents are still thinking that talking about these and educating is taboo. Imams in masajid thinking it's taboo. Teachers and school principals and superintendents thinking it's taboo in Islamic schools. And then we wake up and we say, what should I do now? Well, guess what? I don't have an actual damage control solution. People can take counseling. We have seen people coming back, realizing. I've dealt with some girls in one of my schools where they realized what they've done is wrong and they pulled back. And they realize actually they're not lesbian, they're just infatuated with this concept and it's just been pushed on them through social media. They change themselves. They are able in this young age stages still to change. But once these things are experimented with, continued, becomes part of the identity, becomes something you're proud of, it becomes part of who you are, very, very difficult to change. So preemptive measures, education, brother and sister. And to the sister again, talk to your daughter, explain to her, be a friend to her, but it might not change anything. We pray that it will make tahajjud, qiyam al-layl, make dua for her, that she changes her heart, that ask her and tell her, you might find a good boy, inshallah, in the future will be your husband, you can love him, you can make a family with a woman, what you gonna do? Right now it's just desire, infatuation, and brainwashing. Show her, explain to her. Show her the negative outcomes. So many women in their 30s and 40s change and realize, they call it the lesbian deathbed or whatever, that this is done. There's nothing more that I can get out of this. And they start feeling the need to have children and family again and the desire for a man, and they change sometimes. But those who are brainwashed and continue their pride and they're raising the flag, they're never going to admit what they feel inside at the age of 35 or 40. The primal need and desire for a family and children and being one with a real man. It's not something that you'll get from a toy or from a plastic thing or from, a'udhu billah, just from a woman. With all due respect to anyone, any woman out there, a woman can never replace the man at the place of a man. Ever, ever, ever. No matter what. You try to cut our private part and make it into a plastic. You try to do whatever, you try to imitate us, you try to cut your hair, to dress like us. You can never be a man. You can never replace a real man. So this is my advice for the brothers and sisters. I also want to protect us. Again, these kind of incidents are increasing over and over again. If the communities want to deny and don't want to talk about it, sadly, we're going to keep seeing more and more sad parents, more disappointments, more breaking in Muslim families. Yeah, imams, yeah, school teachers, all community leaders, stop your politics and all this rubbish and start teaching and preaching on the mimbar to your children, to your communities about the dangers of these things. Barakallahu feekum. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.